And I, believe that in wholeheartedly throughout my life is like your mind is so powerful. And, and when I write programs for people or trying to coach people, I use the 90-10 rule. So it's like, let's be dedicated to this plan 90% of the time. And I really want you 10% of the time to be off the plan. Just go off it and live life. Because I think people who are so rigid and so restrictive are losing that psychosocial benefit, that being able to go out to a birthday party and celebrate and eat cake or drink a glass of champagne or whatever it is, you're missing such a connectivity with other people, and that part of life is so important.
Health, fitness, mindset, nutrition. Live better and longer. I'm Saad Alam, and let's hone in.
There are actually a bunch of different things that people can do to reverse the aging process at a cellular level. And when I heard that, my ears obviously perked up, because we're in the business of longevity. I'm trying to live longer. And, to your point, I just want to comment on something. When we started Hone, I went and interviewed 150 men that were between 20 and 60 years old. And I basically asked them about their views on longevity. And there was one very important fact that I found, and this is going to mirror exactly what you just said. For the men that didn't look at age as a number that pulled them down, and they said like, oh, I don't feel like I'm 60. I feel like I'm 20 in my head. They all looked that way. And for the 40-year-old man that said, man, I feel like I'm a 60-year-old, they looked that way too. And I think one of the most important things that I took away is that so much of your youth and your longevity comes to the mindset, and that the one that you kind of place on your life every single day.
And I, believe that in wholeheartedly throughout my life is like your mind is so powerful. And, and when I write programs for people or trying to coach people, I use the 90-10 rule. So it's like, let's be dedicated to this plan 90% of the time. And I really want you 10% of the time to be off the plan. Just go off it and live life. Because I think people who are so rigid and so restrictive are losing that psychosocial benefit, that being able to go out to a birthday party and celebrate and eat cake or drink a glass of champagne or whatever it is, you're missing such a connectivity with other people, and that part of life is so important. And then another aspect of what you're saying, that people who believe and have this young mentality actually stay younger. And I was amazed at the school here. She must have been 8 years old. We moved from the LA Unified School District into the Boulder District, and it was a phenomenal difference in the quality of education and teachers and everything. But one of my daughter's teachers had written a book on positive self-talk. Mm-hmm. And it fascinated me, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is the age we need to be learning this stuff. That's the age, because once they've instilled it at that age, it's the rest of your life. And that positive voice, we've all got this voice in our heads. And if we can, even at my age or our age, if we can change those negative thoughts to positive thoughts or override them, we're not just one day going to be saying, okay, I'm not going to have any more positive or negative thoughts. I'm going to get rid of all my negative thoughts. It's impossible. So what you start with was, when that negative thought comes up, you override it with a positive thought. And there's a great book. I don't know if it was you that mentioned it or one of my other clients, that you cannot afford the luxury of a negative thought. The impact is so detrimental on your self, your ego, your body, everything, that if you're having persistent negative thoughts, you've got to change something and maybe get out in nature and do your tree hugging or or whatever you need to do, but get out there. So and exercise helps to kind of relieve stress and clear some of that downward doom negativity. But just start by backing every negative thought up with a positive thought. Just come up with anything, as ridiculous as it may be, just a positive thought. And, when your doctor tells you, oh, this is pretty bad, we've got to change that narrative. You've got to come up with something more positive. And I think, a lot of chiropractors, I believe there's a need for all types of medicine, whether it be pharmaceuticals, whether it be surgery, whether it be yoga, whether it be, all types of therapy. But it's also, I think chiropractors have a way of looking at things in a positive light. It's always coming from, okay, let's try this first. Let's try the least detrimental and the least invasive, and let's do this first and work our way down, which is sort of how I operate. And I kind of live by that rule. It's like, let's not go immediately to, 0 to 100 stress. Let's try and keep that at like 20 and see how bad it is, and see if it's not quite as bad as we thought.
I couldn't agree more. I always tell people less is more if you do it in a strategic and thoughtful manner. And there's no reason to go to DEFCON 5 right away. It actually has a lot of negative impacts because it could cause too much stress. You may get to DEFCON 5 and realize, hey, look, this wasn't the thing that worked. You lose hope. There's just so many kind of downstream impacts. But I want to bring it, because I could talk about positive self-talk for hours. And I truly believe it is one of the most important unlocks to just making you happy in the worst of circumstances, because it's all the way you frame it in your mind. But the one thing I want to bring it back to is, we had talked about how it is possible to reverse the aging process at a cellular level. And I'd love for you to tell people about your thoughts on it.
We've gone through the evolution of aging. And as we've learned about aging, we've gone through many different theories. And, we used to think it was specifically nutrition, or specifically, high fat diets, or all these different sort of theories of what causes aging or inflammation, and all of them are valid, and all of them have some aspect of aging. My top 3 kind of aging factors that I tell people to change, that you can have the biggest impact in change, first of all, is inflammation. Reduce inflammation in your body. The typical American diet is 20-1 inflammatory to anti-inflammatory markers. So we've got to change our nutrition so it's at least a 1-to-1 balance. So reduce the inflammation. That's a big part of aging. The second one I would say would be sugar. Like, sugar has a detrimental effect on so many of our systems. It's directly correlated to Alzheimer's and dementia. And cardiovascular disease and everything. So if we can eliminate simple sugars, or definitely reduce them, that has a huge impact. And the third one is cortisol, is a stress hormone. So reducing your stress is a huge impact. Once you've got rid of the macros, you're exercising, you're eating healthy, you're sleeping, you've got an anti-inflammatory drug. Once you've sort of taken care of the macros, then we can start to look at cellular level stuff. And the latest research has shown that aging is a kind of a factor of a breakdown of our DNA, or our epigenome. So our genes become methylated or slightly deteriorated. And then as they replicate, the cells are supposed to be identical to daughter cells, identical to the parent cell. And every 90 days, we're a replica of ourselves. We've completely regenerated all our cells. And so we should be getting younger every 90 days, because we've got brand new cells in our system. They're not worn out. And what happens is we're not getting younger because our DNA is starting to break down. And so we're making a copy of a slightly mutated cell, or slightly broken down cell. So sometimes these cells become too mutated, so the body locks them down and they become senescent cells. because they're in danger of becoming a cancer cell or a cell that doesn't function properly. So the body just isolates it and switches it off. So if we can reverse some of this methylation or breakdown of the DNA, and there's numerous pharmaceutical companies working on a drug that will help to reverse this by eliminating the senescent cells or regenerating the DNA. A product that is out on the market right now is NAD plus, or sort of adding NAD. Our body, by the time we're 50, is 50% of the NAD levels we had when we were 18. So if we can supplement with NAD or get NAD into the cells, we're going to reverse some of this cellular aging. And the most recent studies that I've looked at on this is not the fact that we're actually losing NAD, because NAD is recycled in the body. So what is happening is we're losing the ability to regenerate or recycle the NAD. So we're losing the enzymes that actually recycle NAD. So as opposed to just taking a NAD supplement or getting an infusion of NAD, which will definitely help increase your levels of NAD, but then it declines. It would be more beneficial to take a supplement that helps to regenerate the engines, switch the engines back on by supplementing the enzymes or reformatting the production of these enzymes so you can recycle your NAD. So yes, take NAD supplements, find a supplement. There's one that's on the market out of the UK called Nishido. The product is Time Plus, and they specifically supplement NAD, but they also work on the enzyme of reformulating and reproducing your own NAD. And then another aspect of it is, let's get rid of these senescent cells, these zombie cells. We used to think they were just dormant cells sitting in your body. Now we've discovered that they actually secrete an enzyme, which is a very inflammatory enzyme. And so these cells that are just sitting in your body, dormant or shut down, are having an increased inflammatory effect on your system, and thus provoking further degeneration in your body and brain. And a simple way to eliminate these is that 24-hour fast, 48-hour fast. Your rate of autophagy goes up 300% once you go from 24 to 48-hour water fast only. And autophagy is the breaking down and elimination of these senescent cells.
It's interesting. I spend a lot of time thinking about how can I actually increase my longevity, and I look at about 300 different biomarkers and try supplementing with everything that I've found out there. We sell injectable subcutaneous NAD. I take oral NAD, which in large part is kind of useless. And I do a lot. I would say I do more NMN using Sinclair's protocol. I actually get NAD infusions every 3 weeks. And I would actually argue your point is 100% right. The infusion gives me a rush of energy for about 2 weeks. And quite literally, I can feel my body metabolizing it. I'm actually one of those periods where I'm not running as hard as I normally run, meaning mentally and physically, because I know that those levels have come down pretty dramatically. And I fast regularly as well, too, to remove senescent cells. But we are in this very interesting period of time right now where I think that there's a large pharmaceutical push to develop drugs that do a lot of this for us. Have you heard of any that are particularly promising? And I know there's a lot of different ones out there, so it may be hard to pinpoint one.
Yeah, I haven't heard of, for senescent cells specifically, I haven't heard of one that is actually working without severe side effects. I may just be missing it, but I think there very soon there'll be a number of them on the market. And was that, do you know a drug that's already?
I agree with you actually, that I'm pretty sure the ones we've seen have seen early excitement for phase 1 trials.
Yeah.
But I think that in large part, what the problem is if you're finding a way to kill zombie cells, you're killing a bunch of other things too. And that's the bigger problem, is how do you just target the senescent cells?
They are very close. I believe in the next year, we'll see one of these products on the market. There are other, as a chiropractor, we're not allowed to prescribe drugs. So I kind of I deal a lot with supplements, but I don't work with many drugs. But metformin has got a lot of buzz lately, and I think that's having a huge effect. And in my theory of glucose and high sugar levels, I think that's the way that drug is working, is making your less susceptible to sugar, removing sugar, or making your insulin receptors more potent.
Metformin's a really interesting one. We actually sell it, and there are a series of studies that confer longevity upon individuals, and there's some series of studies that are maybe almost like the jury's not out completely, meaning some people that take metformin see reduced aerobic capacity, and it's for a specific age demographic. But it was such a small study. It ended up in the New York Times. I think it was the N had to be like 50 or so. The most interesting, I don't know if you saw this, this happened today actually, but they found that 17,000 patients in Europe taking a GLP-1 actually had 20% fewer cardiovascular events. I mean, massive.
Wow.
And I think what we're about to see is, once they can figure out some of the safety side effects with the GLPs or the tolerability issues, meaning it just makes you very nauseous for a large group of people, and they can figure out the cost piece of this, those will become the new metformins that people are taking, because to your exact point, they are reducing overall insulin sensitivity in your body and making sugars operate a little bit more efficiently. And those will be the things that we take to stay alive a little bit longer.
Yeah. In the meantime, reduce the amount of sugar you're eating.
There you go.
Exercise more, sleep more, do the ice baths, do the saunas, do the fasting, these are all like it. And there's going to be a time where we have that magic pill for very specific things. But until then, it takes time and effort. And, humans are lazy, they're sort of predominantly lazy human being. That's part of homeostasis. It's like, don't waste energy. Let me maintain the fat that I have on my body. Let me not expend more energy than I need, so that when there is a famine, I can survive. And that's how humans have survived. So, we do, and back to that said principles of challenge your systems, challenge your body, challenge your systems, burn up all the sugar that's stored in your body, and then replenish it.
It almost is like unlocking a superpower. And I'll tell you what I mean. The first one is, when I do a fast and I get about 12 hours in, I go through that intense hunger. And those hunger pangs are usually the moment that I used to give in. But what I learned is those hunger pangs, if you fight through them for about 45 minutes, that's when your body switches from burning carbohydrates into ketones. And when you pass that point, the ketones actually give you this almost super ability to think a little bit more efficiently. And once I realized like that's the switch and the reward, I literally said, all right, I'm waiting for this. Come on, let's get through that 12th hour. Or the other one was when I first started doing cold bath, or ice baths, I was like, oh God, I can't, like, this is the worst. And then I started realizing I get high off the whole thing. And you'd be like, wait, you feel this much better, and I sleep this much better. And by the way, I can recover faster so I can go push myself in the gym. And I think if we can learn to realize that you get so much comfort and so much positive in the uncomfortable, then we start to mobilize ourselves a little bit more seriously. But it's just getting over that big mental hurdle.
Yeah, it's totally that. You get over it and you'll realize the benefits. And sometimes it takes a little bit of dedication to be able to get to that point where you can reap the benefits. But definitely when you sort of overcome the tough times and you can push through, I mean, the benefits are so addictive. It's like you want that every day, and you're willing to sort of put yourself through those stresses for the rewards on the other side.